All right, I was once told that you should always open up any presentation with something personal. So here it is. That's me on the right with the big shiny head and the waterfall behind me. That is our family's Airstream up on the top left corner, and my family, my wife, and my three kids down on the bottom left. Uh, these were some photos I took while we were on a coast to coast some travel. We traveled for over a year, 14 months actually. And if you ever have a chance to do anything like that, there's no reason why you can't. If you're in the note business for sure, then I highly suggest you do it. That's not what you're here for, though, so let's get right into it. This is the advanced web class, how to do bank direct non-performing note and REO deals, the most profitable job in the business. So I want you to check your settings, check your volume, make sure, in fact, if you can hear me, if you'd go ahead and just say your name and where you're from over there on the right, I'd really appreciate that. Drop it into the chat box on the right. Just say, hey, Bob from Kentucky or whatever it is over there. And make sure that you got your screen size set. And here's the thing, we do have someone to man the live chat over here. If for any reason we can't get your questions answered here live while you're here watching this today, then we're going to make sure that we follow up with you. So just going to ask you to close all your windows and your other distractions, get out a notepad, shut down the text messaging and the Facebook and all that. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you over the next 60 minutes, which is about what this should take. And if you want to make this a good use of your time, then you should be here present with me and be taking notes as we go. Okay, so here we go. And now I'm going to ask you to look away if you've got a sensitive stomach. No, I'm not going to show you any gore. What I'm going to show you is some horrific numbers. So we have the lowest percentage of people working since after the recession in 1983. We've got a real unemployment rate here that is north of 10%. Now this is, you've got the headline unemployment rate that the government wants to tell you to let you know what a good job they're doing. And then you have the real unemployment rate, which includes all the people who've gone and taken jobs like as, baristas and food service people just to make ends meet. They're the marginally attached and part-time type folks, right? We've got a home ownership rate in the United States that is almost the lowest ever in recorded history, just off all-time lows, lowest home ownership rate. And yet, here, this is the CoreLogic House Price Index. And so if this was the bubble before 2008 and 9, sorry, we're a little cut off there. If this was the bubble, right, and then this is the recession, what the heck is this, right? It's almost back to the par. Well, how can that be? When all the things that normally drive home prices, the employment rate and the number of people who own homes and real median income and all that, how can it be that house prices are here when all of that, is out of place? Let's keep going. What about commercial? This is non-financial corporate business debt. So this is their total liabilities, and the gray bars in all of these cases, all these charts are recessions, right? And so we can see that they just ran right through the last recession where companies just took on more and more and more debt. And now what's happening is that is starting to level off and taper. And so what do you think is going to happen once this really kicks into gear? And now here's something, this is the office vacancy rate. And so you can see that, it's slowly climbing down. It's not down where it used to be before the last .com crash. It's not down where it used to be before the global financial crash, but it's office vacancies getting a little bit better here. At the same time, though, retail vacancies, bankruptcies rather, are soaring. And if you've seen any of the news lately about what's happening in retail with the malls and whatnot, it's just really, it's through the roof, and it's projected to get much, much worse. We can see a pattern for this, where this has happened in the past, folks, can't we? Okay, and so meanwhile, here are the cap rates. If you don't know what a cap rate is the way that you measure the value of commercial properties, okay? And So the lower the cap rate, the higher the value, the relative value of the asset. And look at how compressed these cap rates are, right? The way down to about all-time lows. And so I guess the question here is if we've got soaring home prices, soaring commercial property prices, and all of the other fundamentals are no damn good. Question is this: is the U.S. facing the mother of all bubbles? This is the question that Bloomberg asked not too long ago, and a lot of people are asking. If you pay attention to Ray Dalio, one of the most prolific or performant hedge fund managers in the history of hedge funds, he's saying that we're in big trouble. And so here's the thing, folks. We're facing the mother of all bubbles, and it's been inflated by the Fed. The Fed blew the bubble. If you don't know who the Fed is, the Fed sets interest rates. And so the question isn't like, is there a bubble going on? I think that it'd be hard to look at any real data and say that it isn't. The question here is, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to get positioned for it so that we don't end up in trouble when the bubble pops, because all bubbles pop, right? Not only that, but how can we make sure that we're prepared for that, but also how can we continue to earn and make more money and make better investments now? And that's what I want to talk about. So what's it all mean to you, right? Let's dig in, we'll find out. So if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you the DIY Bank Direct Resource Kit. And what this is this is a kit that's got a bunch of downloads in it that's going to really flesh out the rest of today's presentation. So if you go through today's presentation and then you grab this kit at the end, then you're going to be in a good position to know exactly what's going on. And so that's the best way to do it, is focus, pay attention here today. I'm not going to go through every single detail of every website because you're going to get a downloadable package at the end that's going to really help you take this to the next level, okay? So why would you listen to me? I've been in real estate since 2001. I'm a licensed broker and auctioneer in a number of states. I ran the Southern New England territory for a major national auction company through my own offices, closed more than 300 transactions, and I've been involved in more than $200 million in transactions just for banks and special servicers, both selling their notes and selling their REO and holding foreclosure auctions and all of that. I've interviewed dozens and dozens, over 3 dozen experts in this particular field. We've got a really narrow niche. This niche is that we find distressed deals from lenders, right? And so I've interviewed over 3 dozen folks who are expert at that. I sold assets for banks since 2006. I've owned Distress Pro, my present business, since 2009, and that's a real gavel, right? So I must have something going on there. Just a bit of fun. Bank Prospector. I built Bank Prospector. This is a software I'm going to show you a little bit later on. It is the most advanced software on the planet for professionals who are doing Bank Direct non-performing note and REO deals. I'm going to show that to you in a little bit. So have you ever felt like this? I know that when I first started in this business, right, I had some kind of clue. I'd been in sales for a little while, and I'd been in real estate for a number of years, and so I felt like I should know something. But what happened was this. It was exactly what you're looking at here, is that at the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. And it took me finding a mentor. The guy's name was Tom Satterley. And it took me finding Tom to really start to get a handle on how things go. And Tom's president of a couple of different things, but he's president of an auction company. And that auction company had a little manual, and it was about prospecting, how to call on banks. And it was wildly deficient, but it was just enough to give me an idea and set me off in the right direction. And then sort of the rest is history. I'm going to share some things with you, but it made a big difference, and I took that and kind of multiplied it many times. So I want to help you get past this. So here's my promise is if you follow what I teach here today and you take action, like it's going to require that you then go and you take massive action, that you'll have a deal in hand from a bank within the next 90 days or less if you take enough of the right action. And so what I'm going to show you here today is going to be enough in my view for it's going to be a lot more than I had when I started to go and get you started, right? And what I'm going to do at the end is if you like what you've seen here today, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get more involved with Distress Pro and some of the other things that we have to help you do more deals, okay? So here's what you're going to learn here today. Lesson number 1, we're going to look at the 5 biggest myths about this business and the truth about how banks actually sell notes and REO. In lesson number 2, we're going to cover how to find your best prospects before you start prospecting. Sounds crazy, but it's true. Lesson number 3, we're going to talk about how to know which banks to target, how to get them to talk to you, how to get decision makers to talk to you, and how to ensure a steady flow of deals. And so let's just go ahead and dive right into it. So lesson number 1, let's talk about the 5 biggest myths about notes and REO and the truth about how banks actually sell. Now, again, I talk pretty fast. I do have a background as an auctioneer, but I'm going to try and tone it down, right? But see if you can stay focused with me here and just take some notes. If you have questions, pop them over there on the right. And if we can't answer them right now, we'll get right back to you as soon as we can. Okay? So, myth number 1. There are no more deals out there. The financial crisis is over. No more note and REO deals. Well, truth is, there's over $137 billion just in distressed single-family assets. Never mind, we start talking about multifamily and commercial and all the others. There's over $137 billion in late non-performing note and REOs for single-family residential at more than 4,542 banks. This is how many banks today have these problems on their books with residential loan trouble. And we can talk about commercial too, but I want to show you this chart here. This is a chart of, on the left, we've got all of the non-performing notes. And then as you move through the red, that's the first position notes. Then we get into the second position. Then that little green tower is the HELOCs or the lines of credit. And then this tiny little thing over here, that's the REO. So all of this, here, I'm going to turn on my pointer. All of this over here, this is all non-performing notes. And then this is the REO. And there's only a portion of this that's even on the market. So when you hear about shadow inventory, folks, and that kind of thing, it's here, all right? This is where our shadow inventory is. And what we're finding out is that more and more lenders are choosing to sell chunks of this or chunks of this or chunks of this rather than foreclose on it, have it become REO, and then sell it there. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what the opportunity is for that. So there are 11,872 lenders. Now, we're not talking about individual offices, but headquarters, banks, and credit unions. And together, they've got $217.6 billion in non-performing notes and REO. So this myth is busted. We've completely busted this myth. That's just not a fact. So myth number 2. Everything gets sold as REO through a real estate agent. This is just false. The fact is, with very few exceptions, banks can dispose of assets as they see fit. And selling notes has actually never been more popular for them. Why? Because there have been more stringent foreclosure rules and regulations and laws around that. It's taken longer for them to get through it. And because right now there's an appetite for notes out there. And so with very few exceptions, a couple of which we might be able to cover here, but we definitely cover inside of the academy, when they can't dispose of it however they want, but for the most part, they can do it however they want. They can sell bulk packages of REO, they can sell notes, they can sell individual notes. It's whatever they want to do. They don't have to foreclose and sell through an REO agent. Myth number 3. You should contact distressed borrowers and get them to authorize you to talk to the bank to buy the note. This is if you're interested in buying the note and doing that kind of thing. It's false. The fact is that borrowers have absolutely no say whatsoever in whether or not their loans are sold. And banks don't need a borrower's authorization anyway, right? So the home, right, or the property, the commercial property or the home is the asset of the borrower. The loan or the note is the asset of the lender. So they do not need your permission. I have seen a few different gurus out there who are telling you that you should find distressed homeowners, then you should get permission from them to go and to talk to their bank about buying the note. And folks, this is baloney. I don't know where this began, but I know that of all the people who I know who have been in business for decades and decades and decades, if we stack it all up collectively, billions of dollars traded, all of us agree this isn't the way that it works. And if you've ever done any business with a bank, you know that a bank can sell your loan whether or not you have anything to say about it. And so this isn't the way that real deals are done. Don't believe that hype. It's a real load. Myth number 4, banks won't talk to you or sell you notes or REO. Fact is, if this is what you're finding, right, you're either not calling, you're listening to, you're on some online forum, maybe you're on Bigger Pockets and somebody said that nobody's doing it, right? Or you're calling on the wrong banks and you probably don't know what to say. If you're finding that they just won't talk to you, you're probably calling on the wrong banks and you probably don't know what to say. And so we're going to aim to remedy that today. Myth number 5, I'm not qualified. Fact, there are no qualifications. You'll hear case studies with 2 students with the same or less experience than you. I mean, if I'm being completely honest here, right, when I started out, I had all the makings of a star. I was a certified bicycle mechanic, right? I was a college dropout, and I was self-taught in sales and in real estate. So, obviously I was really very, very qualified when I began this, right? I mean, I've never called a bank and had them ask for my resume. Well, can you send over your degree? Can you send over something? No, never, not once. And so we're not going to be able to get deep into like overcoming objections and that kind of stuff today. We only have so much time, but we do cover that inside the academy. But I just, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I can't really do this, or, geez, he probably had some connections. I had no banking connections. Like I say, the highest degree of schooling I had was high school plus a bike mechanic certification. I'm self-taught in sales. I did go out and I got some real estate licenses and stuff, and so can you. They're pretty easy to get. They, make sure you're breathing and you take a test. So there you have it. Before I started working with lenders, I want to share a few things with you. It was constant feast and famine. I remember one time I had a deal and I had my own brokerage at this time, and we were focused mainly on like small investment properties. And so we had a multifamily deal we were putting together, and it was coming right down to the wire. And what happened was that my wife is post-dating checks as we're just anticipating this close. And so we had this, we'd go out there, we'd find people to do business with, we'd start doing business, we wouldn't have time to be finding people to do business with, we'd close the business, and then damn, we don't have anything in the pipe, we got to go get it again. Lots of nights and weekends all the time. Totally unrealistic sellers. Just, they have they never believe that their property is worth what it's worth, right? In their mind, it's always worth a little more. Excuse me while I take a sip here. Sorry about that. Incapable sellers who are underwater, right? And now you've got to get authorization to talk to their bank and this kind of a thing. Emotional sellers, right? How many times have you gone out there, if you've been in business for any length of time, and you've gone and you've talked to a distressed seller ever, then you know that the way that they make decisions is completely emotional, right? There's no bearing in reality. And so before I started working with lenders, it was like this all the time. I started early on mailing lenders who were, or rather borrowers who were in foreclosure, right? I was like, well, I want to do distressed deals because who doesn't want to do the off-market, lower priced, discounted and distressed deals? That's where it's at, right? So, mail this guy. He's off in southern Massachusetts, which is where I was working at the time. And so, yeah, I am having problems. Come on down here and talk to me. So I walk into this house. The place is a mess. You know, and he's got dogs barking in there and piles of bills. And we walk over to the table and at the kitchen table, have a look at how we're going to do this deal, folks. It's impossible. This guy can't make a decision. It's not up to him whether or not he sells this thing. It's up to his lender. So how many times am I going to go and have these meetings with folks where they can't even do the deal, right? And if they could do the deal, they can do exactly one deal, right? They can't do another deal. This is the only deal that I can do with this person, maybe if we can get to the finish line. And so I don't want to be talking with him. I don't want to be talking with this guy who's got the stack of bills and that he hasn't paid, and who's messed it up 6 ways to Tuesday. I want to talk to the person who can actually make a decision, who can actually do a deal, because I need to make money so I can feed the family, right? So here's how banks sell. Banks, they're not emotion driven like private sellers. They're process driven. So they have a process, and if you want to do business with them, you need to learn their process. That's it. It's very, very simple. It's not how they're feeling about any any particular assets. It wouldn't even make sense, right? It's about the process. And when you're dealing with private sellers, it's one sale. They got one. If you're doing a discounted or distressed deal with somebody, you're doing it one time, right? When you do it with banks, it's over and over and over again. They have a constant stream of people who are not paying and deals that they have to sell, be it notes or REO. 5 to 10 clients is a big business, right? If you do 5 to 10 private seller deals in a year, you're going to have 5 to 10 deals. That's it. If you do 5 to 10 deals with a bank in a year, you're talking about more like 50 to 100 deals, okay? Because you're not doing one single deal with them. Or if you are, it's not on one single asset. And if you are doing single asset deals with them, you're going to do them again and again, because that is their whole business. They loan money. Sometimes people don't pay, sometimes more often than others, right? And then they've got to collect. And in collecting, they do that by either selling the note, foreclosing and selling it at the foreclosure auction, or by foreclosing on it, booking it in, and then selling it as REO. Those are the three methods that they have, right? We call those the 3 bites at the apple. And that's the note before the foreclosure auction, at the foreclosure auction, or after the foreclosure auction as REO, right? That's how banks really sell. And so here's the truth about this, is that buyers and investors, when you become the person who is out there finding the deals, buyers and investors will line up to work with you. Your phone will be ringing off the hook. You will not have to be going out and chasing investors or buyers anymore. And this I can guarantee. It happened to me. Here's some kinds of deals that I've done. This is a $40 million hotel note. This was a note on a hotel project out on Nantucket. This is a $4.3 million subdivision. You can see it was mostly complete. There's a lot of stuff in the back here that wasn't complete. These are all deals I've done for banks. This is a little tiny office property that we had, sort of a converted mansard. I love those roofs. Office property. These are all bank deals that I did. This is just about a $20 million condo project. The sad part about this was that the note was closer to 40, 45, but at the end of the day, the value was 19.8. This was a collection of multifamily and apartment buildings. Sold all this stuff for banks. Funny story about this one is a guy showed up here to do this deal with a bag of cash, a leather bag of cash. I've sold portfolios of gas stations for banks, and so there's all kinds of different deals that you can do with banks. And so it really doesn't, I'm showing you all commercial deals because these are kind of the bigger numbers and they're sexier, but I've also sold little tiny deals for them, like $2,000 and $3,000 houses. Okay. So there's a wide variety, but the key is that you can do these deals with them over and over and over again. And it's so great to not have to be in that feast and famine cycle. And so Lesson number 2, we're going to talk about how to find your best prospects before you ever call or send an email. Okay? So there are 11,872 lenders, right? So how do we begin? Do we just call them all? We just start dialing? Do we start at the top? Do you start at Chase Bank? You're going to call Bank of America? Well, there's actually a method to this, and there's a system that I'm going to show you, and there's some things that I'm going to teach you that are going to lay out for you exactly what you need to do, okay? So if I was going to make some calls, instead of just calling blindly, what would I want to know, right? I might want to know, well, do they have the types of assets that I'm after? If I'm somebody who's looking to do bulk REO, or if I'm somebody who's looking to buy non-performing residential second position mortgages, I'd like to know that they have those those things, right? That makes sense. Are the assets in the area that I'm targeting? Like, if I'm going to call this bank, do they have some deals? Like, if I'm only doing deals in Georgia, or if I'm only doing deals in Vegas, is this bank, are they going to have any deals there? Do they have a pain or reason to sell? Is there some motivating factor inside that lender that's going to make it so that we can do or be more likely to do a deal? Are they even able to sell? And I'm going to tell you a little story about that in a minute. Do they have a history of selling? Because wouldn't we think that if they've sold before, that they're the type that'd be more likely to sell again in the future? And they would. So fortunately, there are some free resources for identifying these lender prospects. And now you can write these down if you want, but this is what I'm going to give you at the end. I'm going to give you a DIY kit. And so I'm going to show you these websites again inside of that zip file, and then I'm going to show you what you need to do when you go to these different places. So here are our free resources for this. So here's what we need to know. Banks and credit unions report their financial condition statements, and it contains all the insight that we need. Because what we're going to do here, folks, is we're going to do a top-down deal. We're not going to do a bottom-up deal. We're not going to go find distressed homeowners, then have them put us in touch with their bank, and then we're going to try and do a deal on that. Not at all. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the top, and then we're going to find the people who work at the banks, who are motivated to sell, and then we're going to connect with them. And that's how we're going to do deals. So the way that you find them is FDIC, the FFIEC, and the NCUA. Okay, so these are the three primary websites and regulatory bodies that we're gonna use. So in your free kit, here's what you're gonna find is some screenshots of the FDIC website and how to use it. And then I'm going to show you the reports that you can download from there and what's inside all of those. And then I'm going to show you how to go take that information. You can go over to the FFIEC, and then you can get these individual reports like this that are going to show you things like REO balances and that kind of stuff in a little more clear kind of a way. And so hang on to the end, and we're going to get you this kit, okay? So here are the 7 things you need to know about every prospect before you start prospecting, right? So I call these financial health, sell, and other indicators. And these numbers that are here are going to provide a rule of thumb, right? It's not an absolute, but this is going to give you a rule of thumb. So things I'd want to know is like, are they healthy enough to sell? And the reason we'd want to know this, I have a little story about this. And the reason, or how we would know this, through capital adequacy ratios, right? And so what we want to see is that their capital adequacy ratio is at tier 1 is at 8% or above. That sounds a little bit technical. It's actually pretty damn simple. We're looking at a single number. But here's the reason we want to know this is, so I was doing this deal, or I thought I was doing this deal. I was pursuing this bank. It's called Butler Bank, and they were in southern New Hampshire, and they had a whole bunch of bad construction projects, and I knew it. And so I'd been trying to get in there, trying to find the right person to speak with. It took me a few months. Finally, I get a sit down with the senior vice president of special assets in there. He says, yep, take me to lunch. So I go up there, I take him to lunch. He says, look, Breck, sounds good what you're saying, but here's the problem is I've got regulators in the cube next to me. I don't know if we're going to be in business next week. And now I could have known this had I just known about this one thing, the capital adequacy ratios. Could have saved myself months before I sat down with him and found out they're going out of business. What types of assets are they preparing or prepared to sell? The way that we know that is through a thing called charge-offs. Are they taking charge-offs where they have non-accrual or where they have non-performing loans? Are they taking charge-offs is an indicator of whether or not they're preparing or they're prepared to sell. And we can see on which types and how aggressively. Now, let me give you an example of how you use this information. I got a call from a bank in Lubbock, Texas, and they've got a small portfolio of commercial loans. It includes a couple little oil properties and a little defunct like townhome, like 90% townhome built townhome situation. They've got a little developable parcel of land that's sort of on a busy strip and all this. And so they've got a collection of things. And I go out there and they say, Breck, we need this all gone in 30 days. So I say, okay. And my team goes out and we get a look at everything. We come back, we say, you know, I see the appraisals that you have here. I know you got it on your books, 2.2 million, 30-day sale. Like we're looking at like 1 million, 1 to 1.1 million. They say, well, thanks, but we can't do that right now. This is Q1. Talk to us in Q3. And the reason is what they're going to do is they're going to take charge-offs. So that means that instead of, you wouldn't charge off like a credit card, you wouldn't charge off the whole amount. They're going to deduct the book value, and that's going to be a charge off. So they're going to say, well, if it's 2 million now, I'm going to take 250,000 this quarter, 250,000 next quarter, 250,000 the next quarter. Now, poof, magically, it's on their books at $1.25 million instead of 2 point something, and now we can sell it for 1.1. And I hope that makes sense. We can go into a little bit more detail later. And then we'd look at which portfolios are they having the most trouble. The way we know that is by looking at their non-performing loans to loans ratio. And when we see a ratio of 6% or higher, this could be an indication of issues, right? Do they have non-performing assets held for sale? So they actually have buckets where they'll say, okay, we're going to take this pool and we're going to move it into a bucket that says accrual held for sale. And that's what it says. Banks report 30 to 89 day late, 90 plus and still accruing in non-accrual assets as held for sale, right? Which is a great indicator. Do they have a history of non-accrual assets sold? Look, I should back up and talk about non-accrual, what non-accrual means. Non-accrual means that there's no longer any hope of the loan being repaid according to terms. So first things are 30 to 89 days late, then they're 90 plus days late, and then they're non-accrual typically, okay? Non-accrual is the worst of the worst. Banks report non-accrual assets sold during the quarter. So if a bank is selling non-accrual assets in previous quarters, wouldn't you think that they would be a good prospect for note sales in the future? Do they see their portfolios improving or deteriorating? The way we know this is through a thing called loan loss provisions. Are they adding or subtracting from what's basically a rainy day bucket, right? So they have this rainy day bucket, and each quarter they look at, are we adding to it or are we subtracting from it, right? And if they're adding to it all the time, we know they think things are getting worse. And we can look at things like what's their maximum deal size potential. And the way we know that is through a thing called allowance for loan and lease losses. This is a thing that I learned from my friend John McCaffrey, Senior Vice President at auction.com. And what he would do is before he would speak with any community or regional bank, he'd want to look at what their allowance for loan and lease losses was, because he knew that that is basically the maximum deal size that they can do. Okay? So I think you can see through these 7 questions that there's a lot that we can answer before we ever pick up the phone, right? So we don't need to call 11 or 12,000 banks. We don't need to email 11 or 12,000 banks. We just need to pick a target list that's going to be good for us that meets some of our criteria, okay? So pro tip number 1 here is I want to ask you to set a goal to have 5 repeat sellers this year, okay? It'll change your life and change your business forever. We don't need 100. We don't need 50. We just need 5. If you could just get 5, right? That's not very many. If you could just get 5 repeat sellers this year, how different would your business be next year, right? It'd be huge. And we're going to share some numbers with you here in a little bit. So let's get into lesson number 3. We're going to talk about which banks to call, who to talk to, and how to follow up with this to ensure deal flow, consistent deal flow. So here's the thing about big banks. If we're talking about Bank of America or Chase Bank or any of the top 10 banks, US Bank, these banks are huge, right? And they have offices, hundreds, sometimes thousands of offices. And these folks who work in there, for the most part, unless you're playing a pretty big game with some really big numbers, um, you're not going to be able to get a hold of anybody who can make a decision. It's just a fact. And so it looks like this, right? I mean, there's some really big folks up at the top. They're in charge. There's a bunch of little people, and they don't get to make any decisions. There's stacks of bureaucracy and paperwork between them in doing a deal. So the idea that you would like call Bank of America and buy, a few low cost, non-performing notes just isn't, it's just not true, right? Now, the one exception that I've seen is with sometimes small balance commercial. But if we're talking about residential notes at all, it looks like this, and you're going to hit a stone wall. And so what I recommend that you don't do is that you don't pursue your top 10 banks. And you can go and you can have a look at who they are. We've got a list there for you. But we want to go below the top 10 banks, right? And the reason is that when you do, then we're dealing with real people. And that's what we want, right? When we've got an office where, let's say we've got a bank and they've got 5 or 10 or even 15 branches, right? There's probably a really thin layer of senior management. The actual people who do the work, the actual workout officers or special assets people, these folks who are going to report to the VPs, right? These are your AVPs, your assistant vice presidents and all that, people who actually go out there and like move the paper around and inspect properties and stuff like that. Like you're going to be able to speak with anyone at any one of those levels. In fact, the best luck that I've had, I'm going to talk to you in just a minute. I'm going to show you how I make my calls, okay? And so we're going to start with our local, regional, and community banks because we can find real people who we can do real deals with, right? And we want to remember that these are folks who are putting their pants on one leg at a time. They live in your community, right? They do this for their job. So here's the way we want to approach this is you want to aim high in the organization, and the higher the better, right? So if I'm calling on someone like Citizens Bank, right, RBS, a division of the Royal Bank of Scotland, Citizens out of, I'm talking about the one in the Northeast out of Rhode Island, right? So I'm not going to call the president of that bank, right? But I'm going to call a senior vice president or an executive vice president in charge of workout or special assets or in charge of credit or credit risk or one of these titles like that. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it's better to get bumped down than to try and claw your way up. If you call into these organizations, right? If you call into a bank and you say, hey, can I speak with the person who's responsible for selling your non-performing loans? They don't know what the heck you're talking about, right? The person who answers that phone doesn't know what you're saying. They don't know why you're calling. They don't know who to send you to. It sounds like you don't either, right? And so you're going to get absolutely nowhere. Now, if you call in, like let's suppose you just call in, you want to talk right to the REO manager. Well, maybe you're going to get some traction that way, but here's a better way. What if I call in and I call at 5:45 p.m.? Who's at a bank at 5:45 p.m., right? There's going to be folks who have something to lose. It's going to be senior vice presidents, president, right? And now what if I dial a dial by name directory and I go, hey, Bob, because Bob's going to answer the phone because he thinks it's his wife, or maybe it's Wendy and she thinks that it's her husband Bob who's at home making dinner. I don't want to be sexist here, but here's the point: if we call in there and we're calling after hours, this is just one tip. There's a lot of ways to do it, and we talk to Bob and we say, "Hey, Bob." I know you don't know me. My name is Breck Palumbo. I run the Provest Group over here, and we help institutions like yours to get better recovery on some of their non-performing assets. And I know that you're not the person who is directly in charge of this, but who is it that I should be speaking with about that, right? And so maybe Bob, and I'm just making this up, and maybe Bob says, well, you should be speaking with Carol. Carol's responsible for all of our non-performing debt, right? And so now I call Carol and I say, hey, Carol, I was just talking to Bob, and Bob says that you're the one that I should be speaking with about all these non-accruals on your books. And when's the best time for us to get together? Is it would be Tuesday or Thursday, right? Because Bob said that we should speak. So my position with her isn't going to be, hi, I'm looking for a deal. Are you the right person to speak with? My position is going to be, I'm someone who helps banks like yours to get rid of bad assets and maximize their recovery on it, right? That's always my sort of aim with them. Your boss says that I should speak with you about it, and you're the one responsible. That's a pretty different conversation, don't you think? And so when you're doing this, I want you to go beyond the phone, use a strategy that's going to incorporate today's technology. And for that, I'm talking about like cold email. And if you're going to use cold email, then I'm going to ask you to use a strategy and a template, because what we're going to do is maybe what we're going to do is we're going to email the boss, and we're going to email two people underneath the boss, and we're going to say to all of them, hey, who's the right person for me to be speaking with about this? And then the boss is going to say, you're going to speak with this guy, right? So I'm going to try that template 2, 3, 5, 10, 100 times. And the only way that I'm going to know whether or not my strategy is working is if I do the same strategy over and over again, right? So I come up with a strategy and a template. And then I want you to implement a LinkedIn strategy of personal outreach, not shameless self-promotion, something where you're going to look to connect with decision makers and bring some value to them. And so my pro tip number 2 here is to use the phone, email, and LinkedIn scripts. Don't make it up each time, right? If I'm going to call in and I'm going to talk to somebody at the bank, if I'm going to send in an email, if I'm going to make a LinkedIn in-mail request, don't make this up. Write it down, know exactly what you're going to say, and then say that same thing every single time you make the call, send the email, or send the in-mail request. And that way you're going to figure out what's working. So let's talk about reaching decision makers. Every prospect's favorite station, radio stations, WIIFM, right? This is one of the first things I ever learned in sales. It's what's in it for me, right? So a lot of times what I find is when folks are making calls and they're looking for deals, it's very deal focused. I'm calling in because I'm looking for a deal for me. Well, if I'm the decision maker there at the bank, I don't care about you. I don't care about your deal. I don't care about you making money. I'm wondering why you're bothering me on the phone. And so your first job is to make it known why you're bothering me on the phone and let me know what's in it for me, right? So we can't be transactional in this approach. We're not calling up and, hey, do you have an REO for me that I can buy, right? That's not the deal. What's in it for Bob when you call? Are you going to sell things faster? Are you going to pay more? Are you going to pay par for the notes? That means the face. Are you going to, like, what's in it for them? And you need to think about that. So focus on what you can do for them. Your initial contact when you're calling into a lender or when you're emailing, whatever your initial contact is, should seek to accomplish 2 things. You want to understand their pain in their process, right? So I'm looking at some reports. I see that you have these non-performing loans because we've already done our step 2. We've already done the thing where we look and we find out who our prospects are. So now I've got you on the phone. I want to understand what is the pain, right? And if it's the special assets manager, what you might find out is that she's got a deadline coming up and she's got a stack of files and they have to go. You might find out that the way they've been handling foreclosures isn't working very well. You might find out that they've got new regulations that they're dealing with. The point is to discover what the pain is, right? And when we know what their pain and their process is for selling, then we can begin to sell. And the way that we do that is by adding value, improving their day, and being helpful, right? So if you imagine this person, right? If you've ever dealt with private sellers, it's you against them. It's the whole, it's this thing where they've got the asset, you want the asset, and you want to pay less and they want you to pay more. In this is a whole reframe. And the way that we are going to approach this is that they've got some problems on their books. We're going to help them. Okay. And so what we need to look at is how you can add value, improve their day, and be helpful. So here's some prospecting facts I just want to share with you. It takes an average of 8 attempts before you reach a prospect by phone. Okay, so a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, I tried, I called, it doesn't work." Well, if you didn't make any attempts, then we can't put any stock in anything you say. The average person only makes 2 attempts, right? So that means they'll dial the phone, they'll dial it again, and they'll just kind of give up. And so if you're the type who just kind of gives up, then this business nor any other related business is going to work for you. You have to be somebody who's going to be willing to go ahead and go a little bit further, because here's some other stats. 80% of sales require 5 follow-up calls, right? So if I call up and I find out, I identify that you do have a problem and you do have some assets that you need to sell, well, that doesn't mean that you're going to send over a title and I send you a check and we're off to the races. We're going to need to do some follow-up calls to make sure that this stuff happens. 44% of folks will give up after one single call, right? Pro tip number 3, figure out what your ratios are and use that to guide your activity. Now, what do I mean by ratios? What I mean is if I dial the phone 10 times, how many times do people pick up? Is it 2 times? And then if I speak with people 10 times, how many times am I going to get to the next step where they either send me a tape or they send me an appraisal or they invite me in to sit down with them? Is it going to be 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10? And I know this sounds a little bit complex, but if you don't understand your ratios, then you don't know what you should be doing, right? So if I know that I send 100 emails and I'm going to get an average of 15 or 20 responses, and I know that only, maybe 5 or 10 of those are going to be decent responses, and then I'm only going to, start the deal process with 2 or 3 of those, well, then do I just send 20 emails and say it doesn't work? No. Because I know that my ratios are such that I'm only going to be closing maybe 3 to 5%. If I have a whole world of 200 lenders that I'm pursuing, right, and I'm doing this with emails and with calls and that kind of a thing, then how many deals am I expecting to get out of that, out of how much work, right? And so there's going to be ratios. So there's a number of outreach contacts that you attempt to make, and the number of positive replies that you get from that, to the ratio of the number of deals that you get into process, to the ratio to the number of deals that you're going to close, right? So that's at least 4 levels of ratios that you should figure out. And I know that's a pro tip. I know that's maybe a little bit higher level, but I think it's important to understand when you hear people say things like that cold calling's dead, or that folks don't return my calls, or that I couldn't do any deals with the bank. Well, how did you try? And what did you do? And how often did you do it? And did you do it in a way that you're able to sit back and measure and say, yes, I did do this, and now I know what I did wrong and I'm going to tweak it a little bit, or now I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm going to keep doing this as many times as I can, right? So track your conversations and all of your activity. You're going to have a few different people in there who you're going to have to deal with. So you're going to need a system to track who you're talking to and what the next step is. So you might speak with 3 levels of people. You might have, in fact, I've never been to a meeting at a bank where I didn't have more than one person. It's always more than one person. They want to pull in a colleague. They want to pull in a boss. And so, you need to keep track. Who's in there? What did you say? When's the next time that you're doing it? If you asked for them to send you over a tape, when are you supposed to get that tape? And then how are you going to follow up with it? And what are their expectations? And you need to keep track of all that. And so raise your game. If you want to start doing repeat deals direct with institutional sellers, then we want to raise our game, and we want to approach this from like a professional. And that means that we're going to have a plan, right? And we're not going to waste time with bunch of prospects that we know we're not going to do business with. We're going to scrub them first, and then we're going to have a plan to go to the top and get bumped down, and then we're going to have a plan to keep track of how we're doing it, right? And that's how you ensure deal flow. So it's okay if I show you how to automate your process here with Bank Prospector. This is software that we built. I mentioned a little bit earlier. If it's all right, I just want you to go ahead over there on the right side. Just go, yeah, show it to me. Just let me know that it's going to be okay. Yep. Great. Let's do it. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to dive into this, and then we're going to come right back, and we're just going to tie this thing off, and I'm going to give you guys the bonuses. So thanks for hanging on here. So I'm excited to show this to you. I hope that you're excited to see it. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to dive in just so you can see how fast and powerful this is. So first thing we talked about doing was we're going to find our prospects, right? And so where we do that is we've got a complete list of all of the banks and all of the credit unions in the US, and we update these constantly. In fact, the banks are updated every single night. They file quarterly reports, but then they also file amendments throughout the quarter, and we're constantly processing those every single night. And so let's say that I wanted to start in Massachusetts, and I'm looking to invest in, we'll just go with locally, I'm looking to invest in non-performing junior liens, right? So I come down here, here's a residential 1 to 4 family junior liens, 30 to 89 days late, 90 plus and still accruing, and non-accrual. Over here, I can see how many millions of dollars and then how many banks are in Massachusetts with these problems. So if I click on non-accrual loans, now I'm going to see a list of all of the banks in Massachusetts that have balances of non-performing junior liens. And you can see that I've already targeted some of those. And that's what we want to do, is build our first target list of 100 or 200 lenders that we're going to pursue. So now what I do is I'd click on this here, and this is going to take me into the individual bank record. Now, we talked about a lot of the different numbers that we'd have to look at, and we want to look at, are they selling, and do they have balances, and are they healthy, and all that. And we answer all that for you right down here. So we can see up here, we've got kind of a quick write-up in plain English of what's happening at the bank. And then we can see what's happening with their REO. And we can see they've just got a little construction, then they've got some residential REO. And we can see that, wow, they've really added a lot. So if I'm somebody who is going after, and I can see they've sold their commercial. If I'm somebody who's going after residential REO, I can see they had a huge increase in it in the most recent quarter. So as I scroll down here, I can see they're not holding anything for sale. I can see that they didn't sell anything in the last 6 quarters that was non-accrual, but I can also see some other things like that they're increasing their allowance for loan and lease losses and their loan loss provisions. And what that means is that they are anticipating some trouble in their portfolio. You'll learn more about this if you take the training that we have. And so if I look over here at the regulatory capital ratios, I can see these are all green checks. I don't have to know anything else. I don't have to remember any numbers. If these were in trouble, it'd be yellow or red. And I scroll down here and I can see here's their residential first position liens and here's their junior liens. I can see their non-performing loans are at 5.3% of what they've got, right? And so I can see what they've got for charge-offs. I can see what's happening over time, and I can see that they're sort of reducing this. So I like this lender. I want to pursue this lender as a prospect. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to find some contacts. And when I click that, I can see that we've got the Chief Information Officer, the CEO, AVP of Risk and Security, Residential Lending, Security and Risk Management, and there are 16 other contacts in here, okay? So I'm going to pick the best one for me, Chief Credit Officer. I like that. I'm going to start with that. I've got name, title, email, and phone number, and I'm going to save this, and now I've got this contact in my contacts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to my system. And then as I add them to my system, I'm going to make sure that I contact them and that I reach out. And I'm going to say things over here. I'm going to keep track of what I did and say things like, I called Patrick and he says, call next week. Okay. and I'm going to add this note. And then I'm going to use this to keep track of what I'm doing going forward. I can see that because I said next week here, it automatically sets a reminder for me to call Patrick next week. Okay. So in this way, we can keep track of everything that we're doing, and it all comes back here to our dashboard, puts it in a really easy, simple to understand order. So I've got my contact reminders. I can see what I've got coming up for the next 7 days, and I can see I've got a call Patrick. He says, call next week, right? And so I know that on March 13th, that's what I'm going to do. And I know for the next 30 days, these are the things that I'm going to do. And down here, I've got my targets. So we're trying to make it super, super simple. Now for the credit unions, we've got all of the credit unions here. And what we can do over here is we can say, well, show me all the credit unions that have loans held for sale. And now I've got a list. And some of these I'll care about, and some of these I won't. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a couple of these to my target list. And then when I jump in here, I can see what's going on inside the credit union. And I will give you a lot more details about how this all works once you're inside of our training. But for example, we can see what they have for foreclosed and repossessed assets. They have a total of 7. 6 of them are real estate for a total of $1 million. And then we can see that they've got an automobile, and that they've year to date they've foreclosed on 5 assets for a total of $1 million in change. We can see that they're well capitalized over here. This means that they're healthy enough that they can sell. And we've got reviews for here's their troubled loans overview, and we can see what they have held for sale, sold but still serviced, and troubled debt restructured loans, 326 of them. And then we can get a look into what's going on with their portfolios. They report them slightly differently in that they report 1 to 2 months late, 2 to 6 months, 6 to 12, and 12 or more months. And then they report charge-offs, and we can see what's happening here. Now, let's suppose that I came over here and I click Find Contacts, and there isn't anything over here. There's no good contacts here. Well, what I would do here is I can request a contact, and we actually have full-time staff who will go and find the names, phone numbers, and emails for you. So it's like having your own assistant. If we don't have an email in here for you, if we don't already have a name that you want to use, then you can request them, and we will actually go and find them for you. So once you start to get a little bit more advanced and you really know what you're doing, and probably that's going to come with a little bit of experience and a little bit of training, then you can do things like set up saved searches. So let's suppose that I'm looking for banks with commercial real estate, REO, right? So foreclosed commercial REO. And so I say any amount of commercial REO, and I want to make sure that these are all banks that are in, let's see, actually, let's do this. We'll do the Pacific Northwest here. We'll do Washington, and we'll do Oregon, and we'll do Idaho. And so this is where I'm looking for banks. Well, now this is a list of all of the banks that have commercial REO that are up here, community and regional banks in the Pacific Northwest. And here's a list. Here's what they have for balances over here. I can see that there are 28 of them. And then what I might do here is I'm going to save this as Pacific Northwest Commercial REO. And if I leave this little check right here, what I'm going to find out is that as banks new prospects enter this list, I'm going to get an email that says, hey, you've got a new Pacific Northwest commercial REO prospect, and it's going to give me a link right to that bank. So I hope you can see the power in this. It gets you where you need to go really, really fast. How long did that take, folks? Couple of minutes, and we identified prospects and we found contacts. Now there's a lot of other stuff that you can do here that I'm not going to get into, but what we tried to do is make it really, really simple and powerful at the same time. So here is, for example, all of my contacts, and I can export these to another system if I want to and get my details on them in here like this. And I can download individual V cards. This is a way that you would import these into your system if you're using a contact manager or something else. So lots of other stuff that we can do here, and I would love to show you all of it, but what I'm not going to do right now is kind of belabor the software, because first let's go back and we're going to take a look at how we're going to run our system, right? Because the first thing is that we're going to find prospects. The second thing is we're going to find contacts. And then the third thing is that we're going to put them into a prospecting system. So let me just show you how the prospecting system works. This, by the way, is a database of special services. So these are all loan servicing companies, which can make for excellent prospects. All right, so let's get back there, and I want to show you how to put together a system for prospecting. So Bank Prospector is a sales intelligence software for non-performing notes in REO. And folks, I got to tell you that one of the reasons really the main reason that I created this was way back in 2006 when I just got started, and then going into 2007, 2008, I spent so much time trying to figure out who I should be speaking with. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And one thing led to another. Now, since 2009, how many years out are we on that? And it's been just hugely successful for so many of our subscribers. So let's just get into this. I want to get you, I want to close this out here. I want to get you the bonuses that we talked about. So hold on here with me for 1 minute. But if you do have any questions so far, drop them over there in the chat. If we can't answer them, if they don't get answered here right now, then we're going to make sure we definitely email you and follow up. So here's just what we covered. We want to breeze through this real quick. Excuse me. So here's what we learned. Lesson number 1, we crushed some of the common myths, and we learned how banks actually decide to sell. And myth number 1 is that there's no inventory out there, when the fact is that there's nearly $250 billion in distressed assets on the bank's balance sheets today. And myth number 2 is everything's sold by REO brokers, but the fact is that banks can sell their non-performing assets any way they like. And in fact, notes are becoming a more popular way for them to sell. Myth number 3 is that you should contact distressed borrowers. This one's a doozy because it'll cost you so much time. Borrowers have no say in the note or REO sales. You know, there was a time there short sales were hot and all that, and there are certain instances where you have to speak with a borrower. That is absolutely not the case, and it's the wrong thing to do if you're going after note or REO deals. Myth number 4 is banks won't talk to you, and the fact is that if you're experiencing this, you're probably talking to the wrong banks and you're probably saying the wrong things. Myth number 5 is I'm not qualified, right? And the fact is that there are no qualifications except for a willingness and a desire to succeed and to do the work to get there, okay? We also talked about that banks are repeat, non-emotional sellers of distressed assets. And what that means is that they sell based on internal processes and procedures and timelines. And so then your mission, if you want to do these deals, is to talk to the people who manage the sales process, right? It doesn't sound that complicated when we lay it out like this. That's what we're going to do, is that we're going to discover what their process is, and then we're going to work with the people who are in charge of that process, right? Pretty simple stuff. So that was lesson number 1. And lesson number 2, we looked at how to find our best prospects, and we looked at some free resources in order to get the job done. Now, this is what we're going to give you in your DIY kit. We're going to give you a package here. It's going to have some instructions on how to use FDIC.gov, how to use the FFIEC.gov, and how to use the NCUA.gov in order to find your best prospects. Now, the fact is that Bank Prospector automates all this for you, but if you decide that you're not going to take advantage of the deal that I'm going to offer you here in a minute, then I want you to still be able to go forward and do this, and that's why we give you the DIY kit. So go ahead and check that at the end for more details. Here are the 7 things we talked about that you should know before you call. 1 is the capital adequacy ratio, determines if the bank can afford to sell. Charge-offs tell you whether or not they're prepared to sell out of a particular portfolio. Non-performing loans to loans ratio indicates trouble. Non-accrual loans held for sale, that's a bucket that tells you how much non-performing loans they actually have designated specifically for sale. Non-accrual assets sold gives us a history of whether or not they have been selling. Loan loss provisions gives us an outlook into their portfolio, and the allowance for loan and lease losses dictates deal size potential. So that was lesson number 1 and number 2. In lesson number 3, we talked about which banks to call, and here's what we covered. Target local, community, and regional banks who are reporting that they have the types of assets that you're after. I want you to aim high in the organization. Remember, the senior execs there, they put their pants on one leg at a time, right? You can talk to them, and you should be talking to them. That's how you should begin this. Number 3, WIIFM, what's in it for me? And that's not you, that's them. What's in it for them? Because nobody cares about your deal. They only care about how you're going to serve them, right? 4 is use the phone, email, LinkedIn, scripts, and templates. I can't emphasize this enough. Don't make it up each time because you're not going to know where things are going wrong or what you should tweak. So finally, track all of your activity and play the numbers, because if you don't know how many dials it makes to make a connection and how many connections it takes to get a reply and how many replies it takes to get a deal, then you're not going to know what you should do. And that includes any of the work that you're doing with email or with LinkedIn, okay, which are 2 very viable sources that you should definitely be using. All right? So the question I want to ask you now, folks, is how do you want to get there? If you know that you want to do note deals, if you know that you want to do REO deals, the only question is, are you going to do it like this? Are you going to go out there and you're going to do it like I did from 2006 through 2009? You're going to take years trying to figure out what to do, right? You're going to interview people. Are you going to go out there and talk to bankers and FDIC regulators? You're going to do all that. You're going to learn how to do the research. Or you're going to do it like this, and we're going to just go from A to B, right, as fast as we can. And that's what the package is that I'm about to present to you here, okay? So I don't know what brought you here today. Maybe you're just looking to add, a couple of repeat sellers. Maybe you're looking to do some REO deals in your area. Maybe you're sick and tired of missing out on the best deals. Maybe you've been doing kind of low volume for a while. Maybe you've been at the bottom of some daisy chains, right? Some broker chains, about the worst. I'm not sure what brought you here today. Maybe you're just looking for a little bit more freedom in your life, and you know that if you can do some of the bigger deals, if you can do some repeat deals, then you can kind of get off the hamster wheel. First thing we have here is the Bank Direct Mastery Program. This is a brand new program that we're just releasing. It's 6 core modules, and they're designed to be completed over 6 weeks. Now, the first question that everyone asks is, well, what if I can't do it in 6 weeks? Well, you can do it over 6 months if you want to, but if you want to get to A to B as fast as possible, then you want to complete each module each week. You'll have access to them all, and what you want to do is go through each one each week. And here's what we cover. There are 48 training videos in there. There are 25 worksheets, checklists, and cheat sheets that are going to help you get fast to where you're trying to go. And then we also have deal forms, which is something that so many people asked for after our last Rainmaker training, was the deal forms. They didn't want to get to a place where it was time to do a deal and they weren't sure what they were supposed to use. They wanted to have the confidence that they knew that they had everything that they needed to keep moving forward. And so this is what's inside. The first module is about finding the opportunities. We look at how the business works, and we talk about how they make decisions to sell and all of the details about sort of the nitty-gritty of what happens inside the institution, so that when you call or you email or you send a LinkedIn message, you can sound competent. You know what you're talking about because you know how to find the opportunities, and you know that they already exist within the bank. And then in module number 2, we get into researching your prospects and really dig deeper into a more full understanding of how they're going to sell and how you're going to get in the way of those sales, right? Then number 3, this is a really important part as we get into finding contacts, because even though we have now over 18,000 contacts in the database for you, you're going to go out and you're going to find probably some other contacts as well, right? And then we want you to do that in an efficient way. We don't want you to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels on that. And so we're going to show you the best ways to get phone and email. we're going to ask you to set up your business for credibility. If you're someone who's come here today and you're not fully set up so that somebody would look at you and they'd say, yeah, that looks like a business person I'd do business with. We want to make sure that we can get you there. And I know some of you, you're on here today and you already own your own brokerage or you've been running a thing for a while and this isn't an issue. If it is an issue for you, we want to quash it. And that's why we've got all these videos and training modules right around that. Then we get into how to make contact, right? Because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to reach out and speak with the people in order to do the deals. And so we're going to show you who you should be contacting. We're going to give you a complete list of all like the good and bad titles of people that you should be communicating with, how to execute a top-down prospecting approach, and how to make cold calls that actually work from a position of power, including a complete scripting framework. Okay, we're going to give you actually a perfect prospecting call script. This is one that I invested over $5,000 in just with a Sandler sales coach who came in every Monday, and he was over $600 an hour. And all we did was work on perfecting this prospecting script so that I could close more bank deals. And you're going to get that included in here. We've got a whole library of these things for you so that there's no question about what you need to do. The only question is, are you doing it, right? So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to personally help you perfect your prospecting script. Now, Clarity FM and other places I bill at $300 an hour in order to spend any time with you. And what I'm going to do for this deal is that when you complete your script, you're going to submit it to me and you're going to get personal one-on-one attention with that so that we can make sure that it's perfect. Finally, when we get into the doing deals module, right? So now we've found the banks that we want to talk to. We've gotten in touch with the decision makers. We're moving forward towards getting tapes and this kind of thing. And now you want to know probably some higher level stuff like, what do you say to move past the most common objections that they're going to throw at you? And what types of representation can you use when you're working with them? How to be an effective buyer or seller's rep. And then we're going to walk through doing a deal direct with a lender step by step and everything that has to happen in order for that thing to close. We're going to give you all the deal forms that you need. And then we're actually going to go through and we've got a complete walkthrough of a live tape for due diligence. Now, a tape, if you don't know what that is, it's a spreadsheet that is typically the way that you're going to get a list of assets from a bank. Most of the time, what they're going to do is they're going to send you over a spreadsheet. We're going to show you how to walk through that and scrub that and understand the assets that are on it, right? So this is crucial stuff, folks. And so you get a whole library of forms for any of the situations you might encounter. And we've got a video walkthrough where we walk you through exactly when you would use any of these, right? So it's really soup to nuts. We wanted to make sure that you had everything that you needed. And this, excuse me, this is one of the things that I'm really proud of and that we do differently here than pretty much anywhere else that you're going to go and you're going to buy any sort of training like this online. And the thing that we do differently is that it's not just me, it's not just my experiences, it's not just like one man's journey or whatever. The people you learn from are real professionals. And so I've interviewed these dozens of professionals, and some of them I've had teach courses, and some of them we've extrapolated and like extracted courses from the interviews. But the folks who you learn from here are all real professionals. I have a no BS policy, and so the folks who you learn from there, it's not going to be any get rich quick. This is going to be people who this is to get rich slow, right? It's going to be folks who have been in business for a long time, folks who know exactly what they're doing, and folks who are going to teach you the way that they execute real professional level business, because that's what you want, folks. You don't want to get into bed with somebody who they're going to, teach you one weird trick, right? Business and being successful isn't about one weird trick. It just isn't. So you'll learn from folks like John McCaffrey, Senior Vice President at Auction.com, and Pat Blount, who's an advisor to my company, a man who's been in business for 36 years. He used to fly around the country closing banks, selling their assets. Mike Carey, Vice President of Transon, got to work very closely with him for a long time. Man sold thousands of assets for banks, and he teaches us things like how to make sure that they come back again and again to do business with you. Frank, he's going to remain anonymous, but he's an ex-FDIC regulator, so you can imagine why we have to keep it on the DL. He's completed 2 tours closing banks, liquidating assets. We're going to learn the real stuff from him about what goes on behind the scenes. And so this is one of the things that I'm really proud of, is that what I'm not doing is giving you some ideas. You're going to learn only proven things from proven experts. And like I said, we've got a no BS tolerance. So here's what it is, folks. In today's offer, you get the Bank Direct Mastery Core Training, and that's got the 6 core modules, the 48 videos, and the 25 worksheets, and the 11 deal forms, and the cold email templates, and the LinkedIn contact templates, and the direct mail campaign. All of this you can just swipe and grab and go, plus 200 plus resources that we have throughout the entire thing, not to mention the script review, where I'm going to go over your personal script, right? Easily, this is valued at $3,382. But that's not what we're going to do. And that's not all that I'm going to include. The other thing we're going to throw in here is the deep dive professional interview series. And I want to talk about this a little bit. There's 43 interviews in here, which I'm going to throw in as a bonus. And counting, I'm adding, in fact, I did 2 today, right? So we're constantly adding new content, new premium content in there. And this right now it's over 29 hours, and we go through 3 different series. The first series is the starter series, where you're going to learn how to begin. You're going to hear stories about how people got started, and you're going to hear different ideas about how to grow your business. And then after that, we're going to move into the professional series. And in the professional series, this is where we level up a little bit, and you're going to learn things about like the internal processes of a note sale company. Like, how does that look? What does that look like? How do the contracts get signed? And then once they come in, how do we process this so that we can broker and sell all these deals? And you're going to learn about things like how to properly connect with people on LinkedIn, and about cold email. And I could go on about all the content that's in the professional series, things like receivership and how to do the math and all kinds of stuff like that. And then after that, we get into the funding series. And in the funding series, you're going to learn from folks about how to raise money, including I interviewed an attorney for 2 separate sessions. It was about 90 minutes apiece, where we go in depth into everything that you need to know to start raising your own money and your private money, and to do that in a legal way. How to set up your own private equity fund if that's something that you desire to do, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Not only that, you're going to be able to go ahead and you're going to take this with you, because what we've done is, yes, it's available on desktop. Yes, you can sit down and you can go and you can read the transcripts and you can listen to it from your computer, but also we've got a full mobile interface that's just for you, so that you can go and immerse yourself. So while you're driving around, you're out there, you're taking your kids to do their things and running errands or whatever, you can constantly be learning this stuff, and we're adding to it all the time. So the Bank Direct Mastery Core course, $3,382 easily. That's the value. Plus, we're going to throw in the Pro Interview Series. I could be selling this at $891. In fact, if you were going to buy just one of these series, that's what we would charge. But that's not what I'm going to throw that in. Okay. And here's something else. It's the Verified Investors Database. Folks, there's a few parts to this. The first part is that you've got to go and you've got to find the banks that have the deals. Then you got to find the people who are in there who have the deals, right? And then you've got to start signing those up. And then after that, you've got to fund, flip, or broker those deals. And so what we started hearing from a lot of folks was, well, how are we going to do that? And I didn't want you to wonder. So what we started doing was collecting verified investors. And so here's how that works. So check this out. One of the things that people ask me about all the time is, how am I going to get these things sold? I don't have the money to to just go and buy all the notes, right? And so, or the REOs. So how am I going to get this done? And my answer to that, because I've heard this for a number of years, is that we've got this verified investors database, right? And so what happens is that each week we have people who apply to be in here, and then we go and we verify them. So here's a new one. This is Mutual Home Solutions, and their deal sizes between 20,000 and 500,000. They're only looking in Georgia. Here's a phone number, and here's an email down here. And if we want to submit a deal to them, we can just send them an email right from here. Drop your subject line in, your deal description. If you got a file you want to upload, boom, you drop it right in there. And so we try to make it really, really simple for you. So we've got all kinds of folks in here, and you can search for them. Like, let's suppose that you're looking for folks who are looking in California, and we're looking for commercial, right? So let's see what we come up with. Boom, right? Here's whole loan acquisitions for the First National Bank of America. Now, this is an actual bank that we have approved in here, and this is what they'll buy. So minimum's 10,000, maximum's 2 million. It looks like they're buying all over the country. Here's the number that we can call to get in touch with them, right? And tells exactly what their buying criteria is here. And here we go. This is an actual bank, right? So here's a bank that we have listed in here who will buy your notes. So we've got tons and tons of investors. We add them all the time, and they're all real and they're all verified. So the investors database, if you're thinking about flipping or brokering anything, this is a huge, huge asset for you. And so for today's offer, you've got the Bank Direct Mastery Core training. We've got the Pro Interview Series, the Verified Investors Database. And now the other thing we're going to throw in here is Mastering Bank Prospectors. So some folks, you know, they show up, they say, well, I'm not really tech savvy. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Well, we've got something for that. And what we've got is Mastering Bank Prospector. And Mastering Bank Prospector is a sort of little mini course that we put together that's designed to get you from zero to like completely proficient really, really quick with the software. So the Bank Direct Mastery Core, the Pro Interview Series, the Verified Investors Database, Mastering Bank Prospector, and this includes the personalized script review. Not to mention, okay, Bank Prospector, which is how this whole journey began for me, which is creating the software, which is going to help you to, like, within just a few clicks, find the banks and credit unions that are selling. Just a few clicks. Get key contacts for any bank. We have over 18,000 contacts in the database today, and we're adding them every single day, and we'll even go and get them and when you request them. We'll find lenders. You'll find lenders for any kind of non-performing notes in REO. You can track your activities, your contacts, your deals, and next steps right from within Bank Prospector. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit proud of this. And you're going to get early notice in new prospects with advanced search and notifications. It's a super powerful system, and it's going to give you back like days, if not weeks or months of your life, and it's going to show you who you should be contacting. So that's Bank Prospector, which we talked about all of these things, right? And Bank Prospector Elite Access, that's where you get unlimited access to all of the banks and all of the contacts. Bank Prospector Elite Access is $24.99. You can go to the website right now and buy it for the year for $24.99 or 6 payments of $647. Okay. The total value is $7,268, and that's not what we're asking for today. What you're going to pay today is $497. So, you know, some of my friends who are in the business who offer sort of different training programs and whatnot, they think I'm crazy. But what I want to do is I want to make this accessible for you, right? And so I don't want to price it to the moon. I want to make sure that people can afford it. And so for $497, you're going to get immediate access to the training and the interviews and the investors database and all of that stuff. Okay. And then if you decide that you want to keep going with Bank Prospector, that's where you're going to keep access to Bank Prospector, where it's the software that we're constantly updating and adding context. It's $99 a month after that. Now, all of this comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That means that you can go and you can try us out today. So click the link on the right and go and get started right now, and you can try us for 30 days risk-free. That means you can dive in, take the training, listen to the interviews, contact investors, all that, right? Risk-free. So it's not risk-free, but you got to jump through some hoops. It's completely risk-free. So you let us know within your first 30 days if you're, for any reason, not happy. I can't imagine why you would be, but if you were not happy for any reason, you let us know and we're going to refund 100% of your money. So the way this works is you get 30 days free access to the Bank Prospector software. So you're going to pay $497 today, and then you're going to get access to all that training stuff. And then you're going to get 1 free month of Bank Prospector. At the end of that month, you're going to be charged $99, and every month thereafter. Or if for whatever reason you're not happy, you can cancel. You can also pause your subscription. So if you get started and you, geez, 30 days wasn't enough, I wasn't able to get started, I can't really use Bank Prospector yet, whatever, that's fine. You can go ahead and you can pause it, and we're going to let you do that. So here's, again, the way this deal works. 30-day money-back guarantee, special pricing, only available here. It's $497 today. It's one time for lifetime access to the training, right? So you pay for that one time, you get lifetime access to the training. Then it's $99 a month after your first month free for continued Bank Prospector and verified investor database access. There's no commitment. You can pause or cancel at any time. So click the link over there on the right and come get started with us and try us out. Now, I said that we were going to do a few other things. I said we were going to do a case study, and I said we were going to do some other stuff. So let's go and do that now. The number one question I get, how much money can I make, right? And that's what we're doing this for. That's why we do these things, is for money. So how much money can I make? Well, let me say first that what I don't want to do is I never want to guarantee or promise that by investing in anything that we offer that you're magically going to make money. It's going to take you doing some work, right? And so I'm going to share some results here with you. And just because these folks have had these results doesn't mean you're going to, and my attorney makes sure that I say that. But I just want you to hear what some of the potential is for this. And so one of the first folks that I think we should talk about here is Paul Marshall. Paul, well, I'll just let you tell him, tell his own story. I've got a recording here. I'm going to play that, and then we'll come back and we'll keep going.
I am very pleased to be on the line with Paul Marshall today, who I'm speaking with from the Investment Only group. And I got my favorite kind of email today, or this weekend, over the weekend from him, which was he mentioned that he had some success. So Paul, welcome to the line. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on the line.
It's my pleasure. And I was thrilled when I saw what came in. My assistant sent it over, and I said, that's the kind of email I like, because I see that there's a note in here that said that you had some success with the deal, and I wanted to talk about that if we could.
Sure, glad to. Well, basically, I joined Distress Pro, if I remember correctly, February or March. I have been a full-time real estate investor for a number of years. Wanted to go into the note business and really wanted to try to buy notes for myself from the standpoint of commercial apartments and things of that nature. But what has happened is the exact opposite. Being on the phone, talking to different banks, I've established relationships, and it does take some time. And this is a relationship business.
Totally.
And it took me probably a good 60, 90 days to keep calling people back, feeling them out, and seeing the people I could really deal with. And back in December, I found a bank out in California, a relatively small bank. And in talking to them, I realized that they needed to cash out some of the stuff because they needed capital.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go into Distress Pro, it gives you everything you want to know about the bank. I mean, it tells you all the non-accrual loans, the REOs, and so forth. So the end result of this, in the latter part, well, actually, I got a check on February the 4th. I closed in banking. This is a relatively small deal, but it was $8.25 million on some non-performing notes. And as a result of that, he wants me to represent the bank for the next 2 years,
Wow.
which is pretty cool. And so we have 3 more deals cooking. Everything should close by the end of March, probably for about maybe two more very small, and then we got one a little bit bigger one. It's about $22 million total. When I say 20 to 22 million, that would be gross. We probably would end up somewhere around 16 million as far as the actual buy. So I get a point of that, and that makes me happy.
Folks, in case you weren't paying attention, that's 80,000 on the first deal, right? So he's getting a point. So a little more than that. It's 8.25 million. He's getting a point of that. It's $80,000, right? Then he's got 2 more deals right there coming. I told you, repeat sellers, right? And that's exactly what he got, was repeat sellers. And so that's, he said about another 16 million. That's 160,000. Okay. So that's a $240,000 from a cold start in 6 months. Now, I don't know a lot of other businesses where you can do that. Am I saying that you can do this? I don't know if you can do this, folks, but I know that I don't know another business where you can, and I know that Paul has, and I know that we've provided him the tools and the training to be able to do that, and I know that that's better than a lot of years that I've had, right? And that's one bank. How much would things change for you if you did this with if you had one bank that you could do this with per year? Just one bank. We're talking, like he said, we're not even talking about a big portfolio. It's a relatively small deal in terms of banking, but for us personally, right, individually, it's not insignificant, right? Like I said, like this is more than a lot of years that I've had. It's probably more than a lot of years that a lot of folks have had on here, and some of you, probably do this every quarter. But here's the thing, right? I can't promise you that you're going to make this. I can promise you that if you don't go after this, if you don't pursue the big numbers, if you don't pursue a little bit bigger game when you're dealing with repeat sellers like this, and start running kind of with the big boys, I can promise you that you're not going to have the big deals. And so let's go on. I want to talk about some other things here. This is Ali Shelby's private equity fund manager up out of Detroit. Great material, excellent value. Signed up about a year ago. Tons of value on this website. Useful, very worth the price. Here's Ray and Arif. Breck has tremendous insight into the banking industry, provides a valuable service. This is Antonio Small. I think I'm in love. Already found a bank with an $18 million parcel of land to build 500 units, and they have no representation. He's a commercial broker, right? This stuff is very exciting. Antonio Small, Sperry Van Ness out of Miami. I wouldn't be without Distress Pro, says Denver Burdett. We've made several good bank connections as a result of our subscription and continue to use it on a regular basis. Anyone trying to do business with banks needs all the data they can get their hands on, and your site easily provides it. Denver has a full-time investment business called, he's president of DB Capital out of West Palm Beach, Florida. And so the folks who use we have everyone from brand new folks to folks who have been in the business for a while. So here's Bill McNichols. If you want to be a professional in the non-performing note space, you must have the tools available in Breck Palumbo's Distressed Pro training. I'm an experienced non-performing note investor, vetted with multiple hedge funds. Became immediately apparent while taking the training that not only did I not have the answers, I didn't even have the correct questions that would lead to acquiring the notes and REO from banks. No hesitation, order Breck's Distressed Pro training immediately. This is a true non-compensated, non-solicited testimonial. These are all his words, okay? From Caleb Capital, this is Les Anthony. I spent thousands of dollars with gurus pointing towards bank assets for deals. After being introduced to Distressed Pro, I now understand the entire process that banks need to even be in a position to sell anything. I know which banks have distressed assets in each category, quarter, who to call, and what to say to make deals happen. And that's what we want to give you folks, is all of that, so that you know who to call, what to say, so you can just get down to doing deals. This is Andy Beebe, and he runs a little bit different shop. They do some real estate now, but they do a lot of like consumer debt. And so it's a full-time business. Says it's an invaluable resource to get Updated info and finding banks and distressed non-performing assets helps me locate the sub and non-performing assets, find the decision makers, and gives me updated reports to help me speak intelligently. It's so crucial about what types of loans a bank has that are in default. He's a vice president of asset management for Fitz Debt Acquisitions. By the way, if while you're making any calls on the banks, you come across any consumer debt, refer it to Andy and you get a nice referral fee. There's so many different ways, in fact, that we can do that, and we can make different referral fees when we find assets that fall outside of our own sort of wheelhouse. Scott Carson, most of you probably heard of him. Says we're the tool that you need as a new note investor. He makes it a must-own as part of his coaching program. This is John McCaffrey. He's one of the guys you're going to learn from inside. Again, senior vice president at auction.com, sold billions of notes, former mortgage banker for Wall Street, mortgage-backed securities trader. I've known Breck for several years now and have found him to be one of the most innovative people I know. His pioneering data miner continues to be an unmatched tool for the note and real estate investor. I strongly recommend him. So those are a lot of experience, folks. Here's somebody else who kind of just got started. Maybe it's hard to get your head around $240,000 or whatever. Maybe it's hard to even, like, maybe you're not even in a place where you can think like that. Let me just share this this story with you right here. Are you somebody who's been experienced in banking for a long time? You own a lot of commercial real estate, and now you're just kind of making moves with a lot of the money that you have?
Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. I'm brand new to the space. When I got these trader bonds, I had no clue of what to do with them because I didn't have then. I do now, but I didn't have then anybody to reach out to say, I got this. I know this is your space. You want to take a look at it. I have people that now are actually looking for this stuff, been in touch with me, stay in touch with me. And it's like mind blowing because, I know it can be done, and I know it's being done every day. But for me to actually be sitting in the driver's seat, it's still kind of surreal. I want to be honest, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Great. And so, how much do you use, or have you used any of the software or training that comes from DistressPro.com?
Oh, I use that at least 4 or 5 times a week because I'm constantly looking for, the right people, the right banks to contact. And it just eliminates a lot of the for instance, it's like basically when I didn't have that, it's like basically just picking up a phone book because, I don't have any insight to what's going on inside of the bank. This now allows me where I can do search parameters and, eliminate a lot of the extra unnecessary footwork that I was doing trying to find the right banks to reach out to. So yeah, that's been a great tool, and I'm be honest, I put it off for, a few months and was like, maybe I could but I got tired of the labor and I figured since I'm in this business, let me have the tools that would help me do this in a more productive way. Yeah. And that's been a lifesaver. It's been a game changer. And I thank you for it.
I don't know if you want to disclose this, but how much do you think you stand to make on this one particular deal?
On this one, I'll make $15,000. It's my first deal, and it probably took me all together shooting emails, and I had to do a little bit of everything I did from my laptop. But I tried to simplify the process or make it easier for both sides. 5 hours.
Yeah. So you had a learning period. You had some months. You're kind of, getting in there, messing it up a little bit, trying to be too perfect, figuring out what to say. Now you got a couple things in the works, and it sounds like you're hitting your stride. And that's awesome, man. I absolutely love to hear that kind of story.
Yeah, it's an awesome experience. It's an awesome feeling. I mean, I get past the being, I was apprehensive about calling. I'm thinking, banks and, the numbers are so big. But it's just a conversation.
Right.
It's just a conversation. And when you view it that way, the more you call, the better you get at it, and you just keep moving forward, and me now, I'm sitting here now. I'll get off the phone too. I'll call another 20 banks.
It's so true. And I love that perspective. It's just a call, it's just a conversation. That's right. And that's what so many people get hung up on. And that's what I want to help you get past with a new confidence and with the proper tools and training, with the right scripts and processes in place so you can finally start doing deals like this. So who else uses Bank Prospector? Because it's not just people who are just starting out. We have had and have currently folks from basically every major firm that you could consider that's dealing with banks. We have folks from Cushman and Wakefield and Williams and Hudson and Marshall and Sperry Van Ness and Auction.com. It's if you're sitting there and you're hearing like, here are some new people who are trying this, and maybe this is not for me, because I already am a commercial real estate broker. I'm already, an REO broker or whatever. You'll be in good company, because the truth is that the more experience you have like that, the more just doing deals, the more likely you are, like the faster it is that you're going to succeed. Now, folks like Paul and folks like Clint, like they didn't have a lot of background like that, and they made it work. And that's why I love sharing their stories. And the big difference, folks, between them and most of the people who are on this webinar is that they took action. So most of you, I know already that most of you aren't going to take action, and that's just the way it is. And I understand that, and you're going to be at the same place next year as you are today, and that's just a fact. And then some of you are going to go and you're going to take it by the horns, and you're going to be in a whole new place next year, just like those guys. So here's what happens when you go and you click over there. You're going to get to the webinar special pricing page. You're just going to put in your name and email and whatnot, put your payment information in there and click Start My Trial. And then we're going to take you to a page that looks like this. And we're going to ask you to go ahead and just select a state first. Don't worry, you can always add more states later. But what that's going to do is it's going to help us like jumpstart you into a particular area so that you can start to get some results. And then inside, you're going to find over here that we've got this little chat. So you are one click away from support. Anytime you just click down here, boom, you've got support, and we're helping you out there. We want to make sure that anytime you have any questions, we're getting them answered. And so is it worth it? Is it going to be worth it for you to invest some time and some money into this? And the question that I ask you is, if all you did was get one repeat seller, would it be worth it? Right? If all you did was get one deal like Paul's, would it be worth it? Or if you got one seller like Paul's and then they sold with you, every year or every other year even, would that be worth it? I know it would be for me. If all you did was one deal like Paul's, would that be worth it? And if all you did was add one more source of deals, so that instead of being on that constant hamster wheel with the private sellers, or being at the end of the broker chains and those ridiculous, the LinkedIn chains where it's a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who's got an AOL email address, who's telling you that he's got billions of notes, and y'all work on it for a while and then you come up with nothing, right? I see it all the time. If you had one more real source of deals to your business, would that be worth it? I know for me that it would, but these are questions you're going to have to answer for yourself. So you have a decision to make. At this point, you can decide that working with banks just isn't for you. Maybe we've gone through this and it sounds like, geez, it's too much. Like I think I'm going to go back and I'm just going to keep trying to work with private sellers or whatever. And maybe you'll decide that. Or maybe you're going to decide that you're going to go and do all the research yourself, and you're going to kind of Google around for answers, and you'll cobble together some resources and hope that you can make it happen. Or maybe you'll do what some of the most successful people I know have done, which is you're going to invest in yourself, right? Invest in the Bank Direct Mastery Program and Bank Prospector, and just start doing some deals, right? And if you heard the stories that we had here, it's about taking action. And that's what we want to do, is we want to empower you to take action so you don't feel like you don't know what to do anymore, and instead you're just doing it, right? That's really what this is all about. And we want to get you there within 6 weeks. Now, I know that might be a little bit fast for some of you, right? And maybe you need a little bit more time, and you're going to have that time. But ideally, we'd like to get you off and running so that you're talking with folks, within your first few weeks, okay? So there it is. $497, then $99 a month. Okay, so now I want to get started answering some questions. Again, if we're not going to get your question, we've run so long, and if we're not going to get your question answered here, then don't worry, we're going to get back to you. And you can pop into the live chat over at the site. But here, let's have a look at what we've got over here. We've got where can I find the script? The script is part of the script is part of the training, right? So the script is not included here in for free. The script is part of the training, so we'll see inside there. Um, how much on average are deals discounted from face value? That is a great question, and the answer is that it's complicated, right? So there's a lot of different deals in a lot of different places in a lot of different situations. So, if we're talking about a non-performing second, junior loan, junior lien, non-performing second position junior lien in Ohio, how much is that going to sell for based compared to like a non-performing commercial loan in Boston? It's gonna be quite a bit different, right? And so, you're going to see anywhere from a few cents on the dollar to 80 or 90 cents on the dollar or par, which means like full value, depending on what it is. But it's not uncommon to see, 50, 60 cents on the dollar if we're talking about like residential first position, and everything depends on, the competition on the tape and all that. So it's how much discount is hard to answer, but deep. And the way that you're going to make your decisions is based on the discounts that you're getting. Do they use agencies or willing to work with individuals? Well, I think that you heard from two individuals here who are doing deals and has nothing to do with an agency. Fact is that the little banks, the local and whatnot, most of the big guys, they're not paying, like big brokers, whatever, they're not paying attention to them, right? Remember, there are thousands of banks. And so, these little guys, like, they work with the folks who want to work with them. So, let's see, who's the correct person I need to talk to at the bank? Hey, it varies, right? But I suggest that what you get inside the academy is we give you a huge list of the best types of titles, and then we recommend that you go as high up in there as you can. Do you have to put up earnest money? And if so, at what point, how much? Okay, this is part of understanding the process, right? And so if we're gonna do this right, then we're gonna look to understand the process for each institution. So it's not a one size fits all. I can't tell you that they're always going to require escrow. Or, I can tell you one thing is that in all the deals that I've done, or any of the people that I've interviewed have ever done, nobody's ever needed a proof of funds. So there's some folks out there saying, oh, we'll give you our proof of funds. Well, that's nice, but I haven't once. How long have I been doing this? 17 to a lot of years, right? And neither me nor any of the folks who you'll learn from in here have ever had to produce a proof of funds. So, but typically, yeah, I would take 5 or 10%. If I'm selling for the bank, I'm representing the bank. I'm going to look for 5, probably more like 10% hard, deposit, pending your due diligence. So. I have here, how do we do this with no money? Okay, so this is one of the things that we talk about inside, and so there's a few different ways to go after this business, right? One is that you're gonna find things, and then you're gonna go and, like, for example, you might partner with some of our hedge fund partners, and so they're always they always have appetite, and they don't have enough people to go out and dig up deals. So we're like, one of the folks we're going to introduce you to is Paul Burkett, and he's looking for, on any given day, up to $20 million, and he's just one guy. So we have lots and lots of different buyers, and so what you're going to want to do if you don't have your own money to invest is you're going to be looking to partner with other folks. We teach a little bit about that inside of the funding portion, but you're going to like flip or broker the stuff, and that means that well, there's a bunch of different ways to do that, but yeah, you can get started with no money of your own. Let's see, what discounts are they selling at? I think that's kind of the same question. Can you bird dog notes? I think that I just answered that, and the answer is absolutely. Like, that's an ideal way to get started. I work a Michael says, I work a full-time job. Is this business something I can realistically do in the evenings or weekends? So look, you're gonna be sending emails. You're gonna be connecting on LinkedIn. You're gonna be making calls. I hear from people who they say, oh, I don't have the time. The fact is that all of us have the exact same amount of time every day, right? And so it's a matter of how we're going to structure it. Are you gonna get back to people via email in the evening? That's probably okay. Can you make a call during your lunch? Like, can you make a call right after work? That we're, can I realistically do this? Yeah, you can. Are you gonna be able to do it as well as if you had all your time devoted to it? No, of course not. But the fact is that the way that things are today, digital communications or whatever, most of the time there's going to be a lag time. And people expect that they're going to be communicating via email and whatnot. So um, let's see. What about funds to acquire these distressed assets? Says Dominic. Dominic. I think we covered this. We've got the verified investors database. Maybe some of these questions came in before we went through some of that, and we also teach you a little bit about that. But the best way to start, if you don't have the funds, is to start by brokering deals, bird dogging deals, and that's really how you get paid. Can everything be done after hours? I think we just answered that. For the most part, you're probably going to want to squeak in a call. You know. That's what you're going to want to do. Like if you can carve out some daytime hours here and there, you're going to like, even if it's over your lunch break or whatever it's going to be, you're probably going to want to cram in a couple of calls there. So let's see. Jocelyn wants to know, can you fund these types of notes through a self-directed IRA? Yes. I'm not an accountant or a tax advisor or anything like that, but yes, people do it all the time. Will there be a replay available later? Yes, we will send you a replay. Let's see. Does it have built-in calculators? Daryl wants to know, does software have built-in calculators? I'm not sure what you're looking to calculate, but it's what we focus on is the first part, which is helping you to find and do the deals, right? So we want to help you find the right bank, find the right person, sign up a deal, and then either buy that, broker it, bird dog it, flip it, right, to somebody else. So that is what this program focuses on. So in terms of like getting into calculators and stuff, there's a lot of places that you can learn that are a little less specialized, and I would definitely do that. Matt asks, do local banks sell assets better than national banks? Okay, the answer is that all banks, or maybe not all banks, it's a little broad. A lot of banks are selling various kinds of assets at any given time. It's a matter of, are they selling with you? And what I'm saying is that when you're working with the local and regional banks, community banks, that you're going to get in there. That's a much surer way to get your foot in the door and to start doing deals. Because if you're going to go call on the big guys, Chase and B of A and these guys, like it's going to be real hard to get in there and make a dent and get any attention. So I would focus on local banks. Let's see. How Darren wants to know, how are you getting the person's email that we're trying to contact? Now again, so we've got 18 coming up on 19,000 contacts in the database. We have full-time staff. That's all they do is they go out and search for this. One of the things that we do is that we teach you is how to go and get these emails yourself. And so we're going to introduce you to a couple of different tactics and strategies and tools that you can use that are going to give you the person's email address. Xavier wants to know, what is the $99 a month plan? Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stuff today, and that includes the core course. That includes me reviewing your script and the pro interview series. All of that is going to be included in the $497, and then you're going to get 30 days free with the Verified Investors Database, Mastering Bank Prospector, and Bank Prospector Elite Access, right? And so that's what's included in the $99 a month plan is the Verified Investors Database, Mastering Bank Prospector, and Bank Prospector Elite, which is access to everything. And it's deeply, deeply discounted only for people who are on this webinar, right? And that's what you're going to get for your $99 a month going forward after your first 30 days free. And again, you can pause, cancel at any time. There's no other obligation there. Let's see, but you can't always connect with the new I'm losing my voice here, so we're going to wrap it up in just a few minutes. You can't always connect with the new person on LinkedIn. You have to know them somehow. Yes, and we teach you some specific strategies and tactics for exactly this inside the academy. Let's see, how much can you make working with the bank portfolios? Stephen wants to know. How much can you make? Is it like 1% or like 0.5%? So we gave one example, right, which was on 7 and 8 figure deals, and that was Paul's example, and he got 1%, right? And so I have been paid as little as 0.75%, and that was on a sort of a low 8-figure deal. And then I've made as much as 10% plus fees, right? So actually charged marketing fees up front, then also got 10% on top of that. And so that's sort of the range and that was on like a several $100,000 deal. So anywhere from even as little as 0.5 or 0.75% when you're talking about like $20 million ish deals, down up to like 10% if we're talking about a few $100,000, something like that. Let's see. I really am running out of steam here. I know you guys have a lot of questions, and I want to answer those. If we all use this program, won't 200 people be calling the same 20 banks and irritate the heck out of them? The answer is no. The answer is that there's 12,000 banks, right? And so we're not directing you to call any 1 or 2 or 20 banks. We're giving you all access to all of them. And so the answer to this is no. And the fact is that if people are going to be in this business, they're going to be in this business. And we're all working with the same set of institutions in the United States. And that number doesn't change, right? Like it doesn't, the fact that you have better tools than somebody else or the same tools as someone else doesn't change where the opportunities are. This is the same opportunities. We're just giving you a much easier way to find and capitalize on them. Can you give an example of a deal you've done? I think I listed off a bunch of them at the beginning, and I hope that you were here for that. I've done mostly commercial stuff. I'm not going to get into a specific case study right now. But I have sold everything from I sold a gas station for $1,500. I sold a bar for $3,000, and I've also sold a note on an office park, on an entire office park. That was closer to $18 million. So I've got a lot of different stories like that, but we're not going to go any further with those right now. Just try and answer some questions. So this is good. Is there a forum or Facebook group for the buyers of Bank Prospector? Do go join us at the Bank Direct group in LinkedIn. You should find us in there. It's the Bank Direct group inside of LinkedIn. Matthew wants to know, how often is the database updated? The database is updated every single night. How can you tell the bank is moving through their product? Again, a couple of different ways. One thing we want to see is charge-offs. We want to see portfolio reductions. Let's see. All right, so we're running out of steam here. I've got a lot of other questions. What we're going to do, folks, we're going to email you with replies. If you have any questions at all here, then on the next page, when you go and you click through and on the purchase page, what I want you to do there is go and click on the live chat button. And if you have any questions at all, you can ask them right there in the live chat. That's a US-based live chat, right? We're not farming this out anywhere else. So we're going to get your answers quickly. There's also a phone number there that you can use if you need to. And we look forward to seeing you in the inside, folks. Thanks so much for coming on here and for hanging. I know we went really, really long. So again, thanks a lot, and we'll hope to see you on the inside.